You're a disgrace to this family. A traitor. That's the last thing my mother ever said to me. No tears, no pause. Just that sharp, low whisper that cut through the air like the crack of a sniper round. And then the click of the wine glass against her plate as she looked away. I was 30, and I still remember the scent of the room. Polished mahogany, dry Cabernet, and lavender from the oil diffuser my sister insisted on placing next to the fireplace. Everyone sat with perfect posture, wrapped in tailored suits and inherited smugness. It wasn't dinner. It was a tribunal. My crime? Not law school, not politics, not marrying some investment banker my mother liked. I enlisted. Military intelligence, specifically. I didn't do it out of rebellion. Not entirely. I did it because I couldn't breathe in their world anymore. Smiling for photo ops, speaking in practiced statements, nodding politely while donors whispered casual racism behind closed doors. They called it betrayal. They said I had thrown away my legacy, embarrassed the family name. They acted like I'd run off to join a cult. But I just wanted something real, something that didn't need spin doctors and press releases to feel like it mattered. Have you ever been told you're nothing, right after doing the hardest thing you've ever done? Have you ever stood in front of people who were supposed to love you unconditionally and seen nothing in their eyes but disappointment? If you've ever felt that, take a breath. Take a moment to subscribe to this channel. Drop a like and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I promise, this story will stay with you long after it's over. Now, let's listen to my story journey. My name is Maren Quinn, and the day I was disowned was the day I finally felt free. It didn't hit me all at once. I packed light, a duffel bag, no tears, and drove from DC to Fort Huachuca in silence. No music. Just the hum of the road and the occasional rush of fear tightening around my chest. I slept that first night in a room with 4 bunks, the mattress thin and the smell of disinfectant clinging to everything. My hands shook under the sheets, but it wasn't from doubt. It was anticipation. They stripped us down. Figuratively, then literally. Uniforms, haircuts, names. I became Private Quinn. I learned how to shoot, how to run until my lungs blistered, how to keep my mouth shut while being screamed at. I bled from blisters, not politics. I earned bruises instead of praise. And I loved it. Every drop of sweat felt like a baptism. Every challenge felt like erasing who I was before. Not the good parts, those stayed. But the lies, the spin, the weight of being someone else's chess piece? Gone. Except at night. That's when the memories crept in. My sister's laugh at Christmas, my father's speeches from the Capitol steps, my mother's perfectly timed public sobs, and the silence after I left. Not a single message, not a single call. I had written them. Once, no reply. They told their friends I was in a transitional period. The media printed it as unfortunate but understandable. A publicist called it a phase. But I knew. I was radioactive to them now. My mother even blocked me on social media. Imagine that. Your own mother, hitting block like you're some stranger trolling her Facebook. But in that emptiness, I found something sharp and steady. A will to push further. In the 5th week of training, one of the instructors, Sergeant Castillo, pulled me aside. He didn't do small talk. He just stared at my file, then back at me. You've got clearance, connections, a brain, and you don't whine. That's rare. I shrugged. I'm just trying not to suck. He didn't laugh, but he did nod. You're gonna go far, unless you blow it trying to be a hero. I didn't realize until later how much those words would matter, but at the time, I just nodded back. Didn't say thank you. Didn't need to. A few weeks later, I qualified for a special intelligence track. Only 6 of us were pulled in. The rest looked at us like we were being shipped to Mars. We weren't. We were being sent to a room below ground with no windows and two keypad-locked doors. The air smelled like copper and new wires. That's where they taught us the real stuff. Code breaking, threat analysis, reverse infiltration models. My parents would have hated every minute of it, which made me love it even more. But nothing could have prepared me for what came next. There's a difference between surviving something and becoming something. Training pushes you to survive. Breathe through the pain, take the hits, outlast the breakdowns. But once you're past that, it's something else. You start to become steel. And that's where I am now. Or where I think I'm heading. The program that pulled me in, Project Hollow Glass, was so under the radar that even some commanders pretended it didn't exist. It wasn't in the manuals, it wasn't mentioned in briefings. But if you listened closely in the chow hall or watched who didn't come back after certain drills, you noticed its shape. I was assigned a single-room bunk in the lower quadrant of the base. More sterile than the barracks, more silent than the grave. No distractions, no roommates, no phone. We were ghosts before we were anything else. Our instructor was a woman named Lieutenant Knox, former NSA, with eyes like a hawk and a jawline that never cracked a smile. She walked like every corridor owed her rent. And when she spoke, it was with surgical precision. "You are no longer here to learn how to survive," she said during our first session. "You're here to learn how to break systems without anyone ever knowing you were there. That includes your own." Most people think warfare is bullets and explosions, but Knox taught us that the most devastating attacks happen in silence, on servers, on supply chains, inside whispers. We analyzed power grids in hostile territories. We rerouted satellite surveillance in simulation rooms with the lights off. We learned to trace financial laundering through shell corporations faster than a senator could deny involvement. Some nights, I lay awake thinking, if my family knew I was capable of this, would they be proud? Or terrified? Maybe both. The day I cracked my first live operation model, something shifted. It was a simulated hostage rescue scenario tied to a digital backdoor breach in an embassy's security systems. I rewrote the surveillance protocol and rerouted 2 hours of security feeds in 15 minutes, while my teammates were still tracing the breach vector. Knox didn't clap. She didn't smile. She just slid a manila envelope across the table and said, "Next." That envelope held a real-world dossier, a target in Istanbul, a backdoor in a bank server, names, locations, one classified override request. That night, I didn't sleep. The mission wasn't boots on the ground, it wasn't glamorous. I wasn't infiltrating a building with night vision goggles. But what I did affected real people, real funds, real leverage. It was terrifying and exhilarating, and it worked. 2 weeks later, I received a new clearance badge. I was briefed in a room with only 2 chairs, one for me, one for the man who would become my handler, Director Weller. He looked like a retired librarian, but his handshake said otherwise. "You're going to make a lot of people uncomfortable, Quinn," he said, "including the ones who share your last name." I didn't flinch. "They already think I'm dead to them." He nodded. "Then there's nothing left to lose." That phrase stuck with me, but something did shift, because my success in the field became a whisper in elite circles. I started to notice familiar names on briefings, private contractors, lobbyists, foundations, and then Quinn Global Strategies, my father's firm. I blink. I stare. I reread the name like it's a glitch. No, it's intentional. The operation is about tracing disinformation funding in South Asia, and the money flow intersects with Quinn Global at 3 points. The same firm my father built, the one my brothers now run. My stomach goes cold. I'm in the war room with Knox when I ask, "Is this a mistake?" She doesn't even look up. "What part?" I whisper. That name. She finally lifts her eyes. No mistake. There's a long silence between us. Then she adds, "Still want the op?" And that's when I realize something. I didn't just choose this life to escape my family. I chose it because I knew, deep down, that one day I'd have to face them, on my terms. But what I didn't know was that they would strike first. 3 days later, I'm scrolling headlines during downtime, half asleep, when I see it. Senator Quinn condemns military overreach after daughter's alleged role in disinformation tactics. It's my name, my photo, my clearance badge blurred out. Barely. The article implies I've been feeding intel to a rogue shadow unit, undermining American diplomatic ethics. I feel like I've been shot. It's them. It has to be them. And I know why. Because they saw the leak. And instead of covering their tracks, they chose to strike preemptively. To kill the messenger. To bury me. I stand in the corner of the ops room. My fingers tremble. The air is too thin. I walk out before anyone can ask what's wrong. I lock myself in my bunk and stare at my reflection in the darkened mirror. My mother's eyes. My father's chin. None of it feels like mine anymore. My phone buzzes once. A message. From a number I don't recognize. No words. Just a screenshot of the headline. Below it, 3 words. You brought this. No name. But I know the voice behind it. I don't cry. I don't scream. I don't throw the phone across the room like they do in the movies. I just sit there, still, staring at the message, letting it burn its shape into the back of my skull. You brought this. The words repeat like a mantra, a curse, a reminder that even now, years after walking away, they still know exactly how to gut me. It had to be my brother, James. He was always the one who used silence like a scalpel, never yelling, never accusing out loud. Just cold logic and weaponized disappointment. I scroll back through the news article trying to measure the damage. It's carefully worded. No explicit accusations, just enough insinuation to spark public doubt. Phrases like unverified involvement, conflicting internal reports, and inquiries from top officials. They're painting me as a rogue element in a faceless machine, a ghost with fingerprints. And the worst part? They might succeed. Because in my line of work, the truth isn't what happened. It's what can be proven without compromising security. And everything I've done is buried behind layers of clearance so deep that even my own unit can't talk about it. Not to the press. Not to anyone. I get called in the next morning, not to Knox's office. Somewhere higher. 2 guards walk me down the silent hall and swipe us into a room I've never seen before. The walls are soundproof. 1 red light blinks above the door. Inside, Director Weller waits. Alone. He doesn't motion for me to sit. Your family's firm just scrubbed 2 databases overnight, he says, voice flat. But not before our forensic unit mirrored them. I nod once. My throat's too dry for words. Weller leans on the table. We found transaction trails tied to humanitarian grants routed to shell firms in disputed regions. Same IP block you flagged last quarter. So I wasn't wrong. But it doesn't feel like a victory. I finally manage. So what now? He studies me with eyes too tired for games. We can't go public. Not yet. You're too close to the name. I already know what he means. Optics, election year, political fallout. He's weighing the truth against the collateral, and I am the collateral. I don't care if I go down, I say, barely more than a whisper. I just don't want them to win. He nods, slow, like he's carrying a weight. That's why I'm offering you the next phase. Off-book, full isolation, cyber detachment. You'll lead the internal trace. My heart stops. It's a demotion on paper. No recognition. No title. But I know what it means. They trust me to go deeper. Weller taps a folder on the table. Your only contact will be via encrypted burst line. You'll work alone. I open the folder. Satellite maps, IP logs, internal memos with heavy black redactions, and a single note. In his handwriting. This is where ghosts become legends. I leave the room without a word. No salute, just a nod. For the next 5 weeks, I vanish. Technically, I don't exist. I operate out of a nameless floor beneath the Pentagon. They call it Sub-Level V. I call it Purgatory. Every day, I run trace logs through proxy layers so dense, the lag alone feels like an interrogation. I analyze trade routes disguised as food shipments. I track fund movements that hop between currencies like a magician's trick. And then, I find it. A digital thumbprint. It's not obvious. But I know my father's signature the way a child knows a lullaby. The way he strings metadata, how he drafts internal memos like court testimonies. He thinks like a man who's always arguing with history. It leads me to an encrypted protocol named RASPEN. Military contractors listed as stability consultants. A global loop through 5 flagged countries. None of it traceable without direct subpoena, which no one dares file, unless someone inside flips the whole thing. Me. I draft the report. 1 page. No names. Just the thread that ties the Quinn legacy to offshore military destabilization, and I submit it directly to the Oversight Council. Through backchannel. I think maybe that's the end. But the storm is just beginning. 3 days later, I walk into the mess hall, and every conversation dies mid-sentence. Someone turns up the volume on the news overhead. Insider whistleblower exposes potential corruption tied to congressional security appropriations. The anchor is careful with her tone, but the underlying message is clear. A breach. A betrayal. A name. Redacted. But everyone here knows. They look at me like I'm radioactive. Some with awe, others with fear. One woman even nods with something like respect. But the man who matters walks right past me. Colonel Braith. He stares straight through me as if I've ceased to exist. I try to breathe. I try to swallow. But all I can think about is the word etched into my family's last message. Traitor. They've won. Again. This time not just by disowning me, but by branding me publicly with the one label that sticks worse than any wound. And in the world I live in, there are few titles more dangerous than that. Knox doesn't say anything when we pass in the hall. She doesn't have to. Her silence feels like a funeral. That night, I stare at my bunk ceiling for 6 hours without moving. Every breath I take feels borrowed. Every second I stay here could cost me my security clearance, my future, maybe even my freedom. But then my comm tablet lights up. 1 notification, a location, no name, just War Room. Oro 400 hours. Come alone. I'm awake before the alarm goes off. There's no time to second guess. No one to call. No one to ask why the defense secretary himself summoned me. I just move. 1 foot after the other. Like I've been training for this moment without even knowing it. The hallway to the war room is unusually quiet at 3:45 a.m. The hum of fluorescent lights, the distant thud of boots on faraway floors, everything feels suspended in fog. I flash my badge at the first checkpoint. The guard doesn't speak, just gives a small nod and opens the steel door. Down the stairs. 2 levels below anything most people even know exists. Another hallway. Then the door. It's heavier than any I've touched. Cold metal. Pressurized seal. Reinforced. I enter. The war room is exactly what you imagine, and not at all what you expect. High walls lined with screens, real-time satellite feeds, digital overlays of conflict zones blinking in quiet, constant movement. 6 people stand in silence at the far end of the table, all turned toward a central display. None of them turn when I walk in. but one chair is empty, right at the head of the table. No one says anything. No one gestures. And then I see him, the Secretary of Defense, a man with eyes like burned-out embers. He doesn't acknowledge me at first, just finishes scanning the last page of a classified report. I know what report it is. Mine. Then he lifts his gaze. "Agent Quinn," he says, voice low but precise. "Come forward." I do. He watches me. Everyone does now. And then, something impossible happens. He steps aside. Slow, deliberate, like the movement itself carries weight. He doesn't offer the chair. He vacates it. "You're leading this," he says. Just like that. Like I haven't been accused of treason by my own blood. Like I haven't been ghosted by my own command. Like the war I've been fighting for 5 years, mostly in silence, has suddenly turned visible. My throat tightens, but I don't let it show. I sit. The air shifts. The table becomes mine. And suddenly the men and women who wouldn't look at me yesterday are waiting on my word. The secretary leans in. "Your operation, Raspin, was one move away from triggering a proxy war on 3 fronts. Your intel stopped that." I nod quietly. My fingers rest on the edge of the table, gripping the cold surface just hard enough to ground myself. "You'll brief them," he continues. "Top brass. Immediate deployment directives. This room only." I exhale slowly, keeping my voice steady. "Yes, sir." He doesn't smile, but he doesn't have to. His silence is permission. So I begin. The mission isn't about glory. It never was. It's about precision, clarity, and making sure the people who hide behind 6 layers of deniability can't use that shield anymore. My briefing covers 10 minutes. That's all it takes. Because when the truth is real enough, it doesn't need theatrics, just direction. I identify the shell corporations, the encryption bridges, the money trail disguised as development loans. I lay out the diplomatic leverage points compromised by my family's firm, each one a linchpin in the global security equation. The secretary chimes in only once to confirm Quinn Global Strategies will be audited and stripped of all federal contracts pending classified review. There it is. The words I never thought I'd hear. My family's empire, reduced to an asterisk in a defense ledger. No headlines, no scandals, just quiet dismantling. I should feel vindicated, but instead I feel hollow. Not empty, just scraped clean. Because in this moment of triumph, no one claps, no one cheers. That's not how justice works here. It just moves forward. The meeting ends. People file out, one by one nodding. Some salute. A few offer short, clipped thank yous. Nothing flashy, just respect. When the room is nearly empty, the secretary approaches again. "You're not a traitor," he says plainly. I meet his eyes. "Tell that to my father." His brow lifts slightly. "I just did." I blink. "What?" He hands me a thin envelope, stamped DOD Prot. "He's under review. So is your brother. The oversight committee will want your full statement." I take the envelope with steady hands, and for the first time in a long time, I feel seen. Not as the daughter, not as the runaway, not as the ghost, as the one who led. That night, I walk out of the Pentagon and stand under a bruised purple sky. The city is quiet, still half asleep. My boots hit the pavement with purpose. I don't go back to my quarters. I go to a rooftop bar 2 blocks from the Capitol. It's nearly empty. Just a bartender polishing glasses and an older couple sharing a quiet laugh in the corner. I order tea. Not because I want it, but because it gives me something to hold while I stare out at the skyline. I wonder if my father's watching the same sunrise from his townhouse. I wonder if my mother still keeps my name off the guest lists. I wonder if James still thinks I brought this. And I wonder if it was all worth it. Then I reach into my pocket and pull out the envelope again. Inside, there's a second paper I hadn't noticed before. A handwritten note. From Weller. You didn't just survive them. You rewrote the legacy. Not for them. For everyone watching quietly, wondering if it's possible. Now they know it is. I fold the note back, and this time I let the tears come. Not for the betrayal. For the becoming. By the time I return to base, it's past, say, 700, and the morning sun is glaring against the windows like judgment. I haven't slept. Haven't eaten. But somehow I feel clearer than I have in years. I swipe through the usual clearance points, nodding at guards who now look at me with a strange mix of caution and admiration. It's as if they've been briefed on something they're not allowed to say. Maybe they have. That's how these things work. Truth travels underground here. In the hallway leading to my quarters, someone has left a folded copy of The Hill on my desk. Front page. No names, no direct quotes. But the headline bleeds. Anonymous whistleblower halts. Foreign ops funding scandal. Congress prepares hearings. I stare at the article, rereading every line like I'm waiting to feel something sharp. It's happening. They're falling, slowly, quietly, like ice cracking from under. Part of me wants to scream, wants to see them dragged through the mud the way they dragged me, but I also know this is how real justice looks. Procedural, bureaucratic, irrefutable. Later that day, a private session is convened, not at the Pentagon this time, but in a sealed chamber at the Capitol. I walk through the same marble corridors my father did for decades, except I'm not escorted by aides or cameras. I'm escorted by silence. They sit me down before a panel tribunal. No press, no audience. Just 6 members of the Congressional Oversight Committee, flanked by security advisors and intelligence liaisons. Each person has a folder with my name, my face, my record, my betrayal, and my truth. The woman leading the session, Chairwoman Dolores Brennan, sharp-eyed and slow-spoken, leans forward. We've reviewed your dossier. We've reviewed the evidence. You acted without formal authorization, but also without malice. A pause. You acted for the preservation of national security, against your own family, at great personal risk. I say nothing. I let them speak. I let the gravity sit in the room like smoke. Then she adds, "Do you have anything you wish to state for the record?" I look up, not defiant, not broken, just honest. I didn't do this to destroy my family. I did it because no name, no bloodline, no legacy is above the safety of this country. I didn't ask for this role, but when no one else would take the shot, I did. There's silence, deep and long, and then she nods. Statement entered. They thank me, dismiss me. I walk out, back into the sun. It's over. Or at least, the worst part is, 3 weeks pass. No contact from my family, no late-night calls, no olive branch. But that was never the goal. One afternoon, I'm called into the ops building to receive a new assignment. My records have been fully cleared. The term internal inquiry has been replaced with special commendation. And in the envelope they hand me, a citation. National Defense Distinguished Service Medal, only given in exceptional cases, and usually not to someone under 35. The presentation will be private. No cameras, but it doesn't matter. Because I'll know. The room will know. And for the first time in my life, the people in power won't see me as a daughter trying to prove something. They'll see me as me. Maren Quinn, agent, strategist, ghostbreaker. But the real moment, the moment, comes days later, in the most unexpected place. I'm sitting in a secure room, waiting to be briefed for a new Black Ops project. Bored, tired, scribbling nothing into a government-issued notebook. The door creaks open. I don't look up at first. Then I feel the silence shift. I glance up. And it's him. My father. Senator Leonard Quinn. His suit is flawless, his expression carefully unreadable, but his hands betray him, clenched tightly at his sides like they haven't relaxed in weeks. He doesn't sit, doesn't approach, just looks at me across the room like he's seeing someone unfamiliar. "I read the files," he says, voice hoarse. I stare back, neutral, waiting. He swallows, looks away for half a second, then meets my eyes again. "You saved lives." It's not an apology, not quite, but it's more than I ever thought I'd get. I don't say anything. After a moment, he nods, almost like a bow, then turns and walks out. No fanfare, no hug, no fatherly reconnection, just silence. And yet, something in me settles. Not because I need his approval, but because he finally knows. He knows I wasn't the traitor. I was the line they never saw coming. The day I received my official commendation, the only person who showed up for the quiet, unpublicized ceremony was Colonel Braith. Not because he liked me, but because protocol required a commanding officer present. I stood in front of a long, narrow table lined with 7 officers, all high-ranking. There was no applause, no smiles, just a brass plate with my name engraved into the ribbon and a sealed letter of service distinction. I didn't ask for a photo. What would I do with it? Frame it and hang it where? In a house my family pretends I never lived in? On the wall of a government facility where emotions are considered a security risk? So I took the medal, nodded once, and walked out the side door. They didn't tell me until later that someone had requested to attend. Someone whose name was on the restricted clearance list. James, my brother. It turns out he had been trying to reach me, not through messages, not through family lawyers, through the channels he knew I would respect. Protocol, paperwork, structure. He submitted a visitation request under civilian inquiry, routed it through legal back channels, and waited. It never got to me. Intercepted. Buried. Maybe even flagged as inappropriate. Because once someone's branded a traitor, even if the label is reversed, it lingers like a shadow. A week after the medal, I find a letter in my quarters. No return address, no signature. Just this. "You were right. About all of it. I didn't believe you. Not because I thought you were wrong, but because it was easier than admitting I helped build the machine you dismantled. I don't expect forgiveness. But I want you to know, Dad didn't walk out of that briefing the same. He's quieter now, more careful, less above it all. You didn't just save the mission, you changed the man who built our house." Jay, I sit with that letter for hours. I read it once, then again, until the corners curl from the heat of my hands. The next chapter of my life doesn't come with fireworks or a grand return. No triumphant media headline, no family dinner with apologetic toasts and second chances. Just a new assignment. The kind where my name won't be written anywhere. The kind that requires me to vanish again. But this time, I don't mind. Because this time, I'm not running from anything. I'm running toward it. My role has changed. I'm no longer the student in the shadows, learning how systems rot from the inside. I'm the one they send in when the rot needs to be cut out. Quietly, precisely, without warning. People in the intel world start calling me the flame inside the silence. It's not official. It's just whispered. But it spreads. 6 months later, I'm deployed to a remote NATO base where rumors of an internal breach have been dismissed by 3 previous investigations. I don't ask questions on arrival. I sit quietly in the cafeteria. Watch how people move. Who avoids whom? Who watches the exits? Who smiles too much? Who doesn't smile at all? It takes 4 days. On the 5th, I isolate the breach vector to a compromised drone signal relay and shut it down. The commanding officer invites me to stay for drinks that night. I decline. He offers again. You sure? You've earned it. I smile. I don't need to be seen to make a difference. I fly back out the next morning. But late that night, back in my bunk, I do something I haven't done in over a year. I log into my private email, the one I haven't touched since boot camp. There's one unread message. From Maren.Quinn at quinnlegacy.org. My mother. The subject line is blank. I almost delete it. Almost. But I open it. There's no greeting. No warmth. No acknowledgement of the last 5 years. Just this. Your grandfather would have hated what you did, but he would have respected the hell out of how you did it. That's it. No signature. No love, Mom. But I understand. That's the closest to love I'll ever get from her. And for the first time, it's enough. Because I'm not here to win them back. I'm here to win me back. And somewhere along the way, I did. Sometimes I wonder if the little girl I used to be would even recognize me now. She used to sit on the grand staircase of our family estate, listening to echoes of laughter from the drawing room. She used to imagine her future in pearls and politics, shaking hands, keeping smiles tight, hiding the storm beneath a lace neckline. Now I wear combat boots. My hands are calloused from fieldwork and command logs. I don't carry a purse. I carry encrypted drives and firewalls in my head. And the storms? I walk through them without flinching. 2 months after the commendation, I'm briefed on a special operation, Project Zinnia. High tier. Immediate escalation. Hybrid of cyber warfare and field intelligence. Multi-agency clearance. But that's not what catches my attention. What catches me is the signature at the bottom of the Intelligence Cross-Match Protocol. General Naomi Chen, Strategic Forces Command. My mother's former protégé. The same woman who once sat in our dining room for a fundraiser, smiling as she handed my mother a check, saying, "With this kind of power, nothing slips through." Now she's signing off on my orders. I fly to the base outside Ramstein for the initial recon. General Chen greets me personally. She's older now, sterner. But when she sees me, she doesn't mask the momentary flicker of disbelief. "You're the asset they sent?" she asks, blinking like she just saw a ghost. "No," I reply with a calm smile. "I'm the lead." She studies me, then laughs, low and surprised. "Your mother told me you left the country, that you were gone." "I was," I nod. "And now, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." We shake hands. Firm. Measured. Equal. Later that day, in the first debriefing session, General Chen stops mid-presentation. She turns to the others in the room, an eclectic mix of command staff and multi-branch intel heads, and says, "I've seen a lot of young talent rise through the ranks, but this one rewrote the rules and burned the map." It's the first time I hear someone from that world, the one I grew up in, validate this version of me. Not the daughter, not the rebel, not the traitor, but the professional. The one who stayed in the shadows long enough to become the spotlight no one can look away from. The operation succeeds. No casualties, no press, no leaks. Just another redacted report filed into a steel vault in Langley. But a week later, I receive a secure invitation to a ceremony. Internal Intel Honors Night. It's unofficial. No press allowed. Just government lifers and special division awards. Medals that never make it to newsrooms. I go. Reluctantly. Not for the applause, but because something in me wants to be seen by the people who matter. People who know what I've done. That night, the ballroom is dim, filled with quiet jazz and whispers between analysts who haven't been outside in months. I'm seated near the back, where the higher-ups can pretend to be casual. And halfway through the evening, just as the room settles before the final commendation, I hear my name. Maren Quinn. My heart pauses. The announcer doesn't read a title, doesn't read a rank. She just says, "When the fire came from within our own walls, she walked through it and held the line." The room turns, and slowly, the applause builds. Soft at first, then steady, then rising. People stand. Some clap with respect, some with something heavier. Understanding, gratitude. It's not dramatic. There's no spotlight, no speech, but it's real. And when I walk up to receive the quiet token of recognition, a small insignia only worn by operatives with classified clearance above Tier 8, I realize this is the moment my body has been holding out for all along. Not revenge, not even redemption, just recognition. Later, when I slip outside for air, someone follows. She's younger than me by a few years. Nervous, hands in the pockets of a wool coat too big for her frame. "Ma'am," she says softly. I turn. "Yes?" I just wanted to say..." She clears her throat. "I read your redacted case file, the training logs, the sublevel V report." I raise an eyebrow. "You're cleared for that?" She nods. "Barely. A beat." She steps closer. "I joined because of you." I blink. "You don't even know me." "No," she says. "But I know what you did. I know what they called you. And I know what you chose to become anyway." My throat tightens. "Thank you," she whispers. She doesn't stay, just nods and disappears into the cold. But I stand there for a long time, letting the silence hold me. Because maybe the legacy I was born into no longer exists. But the one I built? It's starting to. It's strange, the way silence changes when you've made peace with it. It used to be a punishment, a void left by family dinners I wasn't invited to, holidays I wasn't remembered on, birthdays that passed without even a text. Now it feels like a room I own the deed to, a space where I can breathe, reflect, choose what stays and what never comes in again. I no longer chase messages that never arrive. I no longer flinch when I hear my last name on the news. I don't wait for reconciliation like it's a reward for good behavior. I walk into every space with the knowledge that I made it through. Not because someone cleared a path for me, but because I carved one through the granite of their expectations and judgments. I've since moved off base. Quiet neighborhood outside Arlington. No family photos on the walls. Just a plant I keep forgetting to water. And a dog-eared copy of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius beside my bed. There's something comforting about reading a man from 2,000 years ago talk about endurance, clarity, truth, and the weight of one's name. He once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." I'd scribbled over it years ago, underlined it twice, but I finally understand it now. Last week I received an invitation, cream-colored, embossed, elegant, like all things my family touches. My brother's engagement party, hosted by my father, with my mother's personal signature at the bottom. Maren Quinn invites you to join us. There's no apology, no explanation, just an open door. For the first time in years, I don't feel anger when I read it. Only clarity. I don't need to go, because I no longer need them to change for me to be whole. That part of me, the one that ached to be welcomed back, to be understood, to be acknowledged, that part no longer runs the show. She's still here. But she sits beside me now, not at the wheel. Instead, I write back. One sentence. "Thank you for the invitation. I'm unable to attend. But I wish you well." And that's it. No drama, no return fire. Just a line drawn with peace, instead of pain. Last night, I walked past a group of cadets at a nearby training facility. They were gathered around a bench, talking shop, energy buzzing with that early fire I remember in my own bones. One of them pointed at me. Not loud. not obvious. But he leaned in and whispered something. The others turned. And then he said, clear enough for me to hear it, "That's her. That's the one they called a traitor. But she's the reason we're even here." I kept walking. Didn't turn. Didn't nod. But inside, I smiled. Not because I need to be a legend, but because it means the story changed. I didn't just survive what they did to me. I outlived it. There are still battles ahead. Political shifts. New fronts. Ghosts that never truly die. But I meet them now with steadier hands. Because I know who I am. Not because my family told me. Not because the system finally gave me a medal, but because I walked straight into the fire they threw me in, and built a home there, one where truth doesn't need permission, where loyalty isn't blind, where silence can be strength, not exile, where the girl they tried to erase now carries a name they can't deny. And so when the defense secretary stepped aside and said, "You're leading the classified ops unit," he wasn't giving me power. He was recognizing what I'd already claimed. I was the legacy now, not inherited, earned, and I intend to protect it. For every woman who's ever been called a traitor by the very people she once bled to protect.